Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive. This time we're exploring Zora Neale Hurston's Their Eyes Were Watching God.
Oh, a classic.
It is. And we're going to trace the life of our main character, Janie Crawford. I think it'll be a really exciting journey for us all.
It really is, you know? Janie's journey is so powerful. It's not just about finding love, but about finding your voice, your identity, especially in a world that, constantly wants to define you.
Right, exactly. And to really dig deep, we have excerpts from the novel, of course, but we're also going to be pulling from the foreword and even an essay analyzing the book's impact.
Nice.
So it's not just about what happens to Janie,
Right.
but why it matters, why it still resonates with us today.
Yeah. And, Hurston was such a master storyteller. The
Yeah.
way she uses language, the imagery, folklore to create this picture of Black life in the early 20th century. It's just incredible.
Breathtaking. So let's jump right in. The book opens with Janie returning to Eatonville after being away. And there's this mystery surrounding her. Everyone is kind of whispering, wondering what happened.
Oh, yeah. Hurston knows how to pull you in right from the start.
Immediately, yeah.
Immediately curious about her past, what led to this return. And to understand Janie, you have to understand her grandmother, Nanny.
Right. Nanny raised Janie, and she's a former slave, so she carries, that weight of experience and trauma.
Definitely. And Nanny's past really shapes her worldview. And really her fears for Janie. I mean, she wants to protect her granddaughter from the same pain she went through.
And that leads Nanny to kind of push Janie into this first marriage, right?
Yeah.
With Logan Killicks.
Exactly. For Nanny, Logan represents, security and stability. He owns land, which during this time for Black people was so important. It meant power, independence. But for Janie, we see that safety isn't enough.
Right.
She wants something deeper. It's like she wants something that speaks to her soul.
Yes, and she says, once things sweet with mom marriage lack, would you sit under a pear tree and think?
Oh, that pear tree image.
Yeah.
So powerful. It embodies this romantic ideal, a love that's fulfilling, passionate, that allows her to really blossom.
To grow.
Yeah.
But her marriage to Logan is, well, it's far from a pear tree moment.
Definitely not.
Filled with work and just a sense of being used.
Yeah. It's important to remember this was a time when, especially Black women, had limited choices.
Yeah.
Marriage was seen as survival, security, not necessarily personal fulfillment.
Right. So then Joe Starks arrives in Eatonville, and Janie sees him as this way out.
A way out, exactly. He's
Right.
ambitious, he's articulate, and he's promising Janie a life beyond, the drudgery of her current situation.
They move to Eatonville, this new all-Black town.
Right.
And he becomes the mayor,
He does.
a symbol of progress.
Yeah.
He wants to, modernize things and lift up the community.
And on the surface, Joe seems like the perfect match. He embodies that self-determination that was so important. But as their relationship unfolds, you start to see a darker side to Joe and his ambition.
It becomes controlling.
Oh, absolutely.
It's like his desire for power extends to Janie.
Yeah.
He wants to control her life, too.
You see it in so many ways, he's dictating her appearance, makes her keep her hair tied up, forbids her from participating in the mule talk on the porch.
That always seems so fun. So lively and just full of laughter.
Oh, it was. And it really represented that oral tradition, storytelling,
Yeah.
community bonding. But for Joe, it was beneath him. It was too country
Oh.
for his tastes. And by silencing Janie, he really isolates her and reinforces his own authority.
It's like he wants her to be this perfect, silent trophy wife, not a woman with thoughts, opinions.
It reflects a very common, a very common pattern in abusive relationships,
Yeah.
where the abuser isolates their partner, controls them, diminishes their self-worth.
And it's just heartbreaking when Janie describes feeling like somebody snatched off part of a woman's clothes while she wasn't looking and the streets were crowded.
What an image.
Yeah.
Really speaks to that violation Janie experiences. Joe has stripped her of her voice, her freedom, her identity. It's like this emotional nakedness
Yeah.
that she feels under his control.
Vulnerability. And you see this dynamic still today. You see in stories like The Handmaid's Tale,
Oh, of course.
my brilliant friend. Women trapped in systems that try to silence them.
Exactly.
And it's one of the reasons Their Eyes Were Watching God still resonates with us.
Yeah,
It's these timeless themes of power and control and this fight for self-expression.
absolutely.
But Janie does push back eventually.
She does.
And one of the most memorable scenes is when she publicly humiliates Joe by criticizing his aging body in front of the whole town.
Oh, yeah.
A bold act of defiance, but it comes at a cost.
It really does.
Their relationship never recovers
Yeah.
from that.
And it just shows those complexities of power dynamics,
Right.
you know? Sometimes even acts of resistance can just further entrench those patterns of control.
And soon after that, Joe's health begins to decline. He becomes even more possessive
Oh, his illness just intensifies that fear of losing control.
over everything.
Yeah.
But in a final act of defiance, Janie confronts him on his deathbed,
She does.
speaks her truth, releases years of frustration.
It's a powerful moment for Janie. She's breaking free from the silence.
Yes.
And she refuses to be silenced any longer.
She perfectly says he changes everything, but nothing, don't change him, not even death.
So true.
You know, he was so focused on the world around him, he never really looked inward
Yeah.
and never changed.
Poignant observation about ego and self-awareness.
Yeah. And for Janie, his death is the end of an era.
It is.
You know, she's grieving, but there's also this sense of relief, a new beginning
A new beginning.
that leads her to Tea Cake,
Hmm.
a man who challenges everything she thought she knew about love and freedom.
Now, that's a story for next time.
We'll have to wait.
Stay tuned. Janie's journey is about to get very interesting.
Very interesting.
Welcome back.
Now, as we get further into Janie's journey, I'm really struck by how Hurston uses, folklore in the vernacular.
Yeah.
It really brings the world of the novel to life.
Oh, for sure. It's like you're right there on that porch listening to all the gossip and stories.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that use of language was actually quite revolutionary for its time.
Oh, yeah. Back in the 1930s, there was this whole debate about how Black experiences should be portrayed. Some critics, like Richard Wright, felt Hurston's work wasn't political enough.
Right. Not directly addressing the injustices faced by Black people.
Exactly. But Hurston, she believed in celebrating the fullness of Black life.
Yeah. The everyday joys, the sorrows, the unique ways of speaking and expressing oneself.
And I think history has proven her right.
Oh, definitely. Their eyes were watching. God is a cornerstone of American literature. It's influenced so many writers who came after her.
Like Alice Walker or Toni Morrison.
Yes, using their voices to illuminate Black womanhood, challenging the dominant narratives.
Absolutely. It's a beautiful evolution of literary tradition.
It's interesting, though, how throughout the novel, Janie's own voice is almost drowned out by the men in her life.
That's such a good point. Logan wants a silent worker. Joe wants a decorative first lady. Even Tea Cake, despite his love, sometimes struggles to really see her.
It's not just the men, either. It's the community gossip, the judgment, the weight of tradition.
Mm-hmm.
Even her best friend, Phoebe, worries what people will say about Janie's relationship with Tea Cake.
It's true. The community, while offering belonging, can also be incredibly stifling. There's this pressure to conform, especially for women.
And even the way Janie and the men use language is different. She's poetic, insightful, connected to nature.
Huh.
But the men often use words as weapons.
It's deliberate. Hurston's contrasting those ways of using language. It reflects the different expectations placed on men and women.
Like even that mule talk on the porch. For the men, it's a competition, but for Janie, it's about connection, sharing stories.
It goes back to language as community building, something Joe, with his desire for power, completely misses.
And then there's Mrs. Turner with her obsession with white features.
Oh, Mrs. Turner. She embodies that internalized racism, a painful legacy that still lingered. It's a reminder that oppression can come from within our own communities as well.
It's something that writers like Jesmyn Ward and Colson Whitehead explore so well today.
They really do, showing how the past shapes the present.
And it makes Janie's return to Eatonville all the more powerful.
It does. She's coming back on her own terms,
Yeah.
having lived a life full of joy and sorrow.
She's not seeking approval anymore.
Exactly. She's found her own voice.
That final scene with Phoebe where Janie shares her story.
So powerful.
It's like she's reclaiming her narrative.
Refusing to let others define her.
And when she says you got to go there to know there, it's about living your own life, making your own choices.
It's a message that transcends time. You see it in Jane Eyre, Huckleberry Finn. These characters breaking free from society's constraints.
It's that yearning for freedom, for self-expression.
Absolutely. And their eyes were watching God. Reminds us that the journey is just as important as the destination.
Embracing the ups and downs, the heartbreaks and the triumphs.
And finding peace within yourself.
Speaking of journeys, one thing that struck me was the role of nature in Janie's life. It's more than just a setting.
Oh, I agree. It's almost like another character.
From that pear tree at the beginning, symbolizing her yearning for love,
To the hurricane, a force that tests her bond with Tea Cake.
nature is always there, shaping Janie's experiences.
And her language often mirrors the natural world. She speaks in metaphors, comparing her life to the rhythms of nature.
Like when she describes her love for tea cake as being like the sea, always changing, adapting.
Beautiful imagery, and even in moments of sorrow like Joe's death, she finds solace in nature.
Like standing at the window, watching the sunset, calling out to the townspeople.
There's a sense of renewal acceptance, as if nature itself is offering her a way to move forward.
It's like nature provides this continuity, a reminder that life goes on.
Exactly. And that connection to nature contributes to Janie's resilience, her capacity for love and forgiveness.
It makes me think of other works that explore this connection. Walden by Thoreau.
Pilgrim at Tinker Creek by Annie Dillard.
And more recently, Braiding Sweetgrass by Robin Wall Kimmerer,
It's a thread that runs through literature across time.
showing we're all part of something larger.
Absolutely. And Hurston shows how that connection to nature can be a source of strength, healing, and self-discovery.
We've covered so much in this deep dive. Janie's quest for love, the power of language, the role of nature.
And we've touched on some important issues: social injustice, domestic abuse, the legacy of racism,
But ultimately, their eyes were watching God is a story of hope
resilience.
and the power to overcome adversity.
Absolutely.
Before we wrap up, though, I'd love to explore the theme of power and control in Janie's relationships. It feels especially relevant today as we continue to discuss gender equality and women's rights.
Yeah, it's true. Each of Janie's marriages has these power imbalances, but they show up in different ways.
Oh, definitely. You see, with Logan, he tries to assert dominance through, physical labor,
Yeah.
expecting Janie to just be subservient, unquestioning. He sees her as a helpmate, not a partner.
And then there's Joe.
He uses his position, his wealth, to control everything she does.
Right. He wants her to be this reflection of his success, not a woman with her own ambitions, her own desires.
Even with tea cake, and we've said he is more loving, more respectful, but those power dynamics still come up. Like when he slaps Janie out of jealousy.
Yeah, that's a jarring moment. It kind of disrupts that image of tea cake as this, idealized romantic figure. And it forces us to look at the complexity of love and acknowledge that even those who say they love you can do harm.
Right, it reminds us that domestic violence, it can exist even in relationships that seem passionate or loving.
Absolutely. And Hurston, she doesn't shy away from depicting these uncomfortable realities, which makes the novel even more powerful, even today.
She's showing us that this journey of self-discovery, well, it's not always easy. It's not always straightforward. It's about navigating these power dynamics, recognizing those red flags, and finding that strength to break free.
Exactly. Janie's story, I think, really reminds us that we all deserve to be in relationships that are safe, respectful, and empowering.
Where our voices are heard.
Absolutely. Her journey is a testament to the human spirit, to endure, to grow, to find your own liberation.
I think that's a beautiful way to sum up this deep dive. Janie's story, it encourages us to find our own voices, to embrace the richness of our own experiences.
And to tell our stories.
Yes, even when they're messy and complicated.
Absolutely, because it's our stories that shape us, and they leave their mark on the world.
Thank you all for joining us on this journey. Through their eyes, we're watching God. We hope you leave feeling inspired, inspired to explore, to question, to tell your own stories.
And as always, keep those pages turning and those minds engaged.
Mm.
Until next time.